My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. And yeah, I know I kind of blew it up there a little bit on the title of this show. But after you see what Michelle Obama said, you're going to think she's a racist too. I mean, I don't have any other way to put it. And I hate to tell the black separatists and the Antifa people in this world, but racism is not determined by this color of your skin, whether or not you can be a racist or not. Racism is determined by the color of your heart, how hateful you are, how dark is your heart. And I'm not talking about the literal color for those other trolls that want to turn that into a racial thing. It's how dark of a person you are. That's where racism comes from. Don't even get me started yet about John Lewis. We'll talk about him as well. That guy, wow, what an idiot. Let's get started. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right. Well, listen, I'm not the type of person that gets off on belittling people or talking bad about them. You know, that's not my goal in doing this show. It's as I've always said many, many times before, the goal of this show is to give you all a platform so that you can realistically see what's happening in the news from an expert's point of view. If I'm not an expert in that field, or if I don't have some understanding of it, well, then I'll get people in here that do have more expertise and understanding in that field. When I look at what I'm going to start off tonight, before I get into Michelle Obama, before I get into this weirdo John Lewis, who I think has been perpetrating a fraud for many, many years, saying that he's some kind of civil rights guru and like person of the people. I mean, nonsense. He reminds me of John McCain. He did something, I guess you could say what he did was great back in the 60s. I have a feeling John Lewis is very closely related to the Communist Party. But like John McCain, that was then. This is now. And the time from then to now has been horrible. John McCain has destroyed more things than he's been a part of fixing. He's like a conservative he's a rhino Jimmy Carter. And then you have John Lewis, people like John Lewis, who is the guy doesn't have any fixes. He just always jumping on the bandwagon to amp things up, to politic, and to do nothing. He doesn't solve any problems, John Lewis. What has he solved? Nothing. And look, if you say he was a great man back in the day, okay, I didn't know him then. All I know is the John Lewis that's been a politician forever, and he's a complete loser as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to get into that in a minute, and I'm going to play part of his speech that he did today, and it's just absolutely terrible. So make sure, before we get started, make sure that if you're on Facebook that you are sharing this on your page. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you're retweeting it right now. Don't wait until later. Do it right now. That way it populates all the fields and everybody, all the different websites, and it goes across people's feeds. Facebook has been screwing me on my reach. It went from 1 million down to, I don't know, like 16,000. It was down as low as 5,000 for, you can't know whether the reason when my views are going. Last night we had 18,000 views. Yet I don't remember what it was, like 30, 40,000 people reached, whereas before we had 1 million people reached, and we're only having like 5,000 views. So I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. I think it's a game that they're playing. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the developments of Las Vegas. There's a couple things that I want to talk about. One, I've been inundated over and over again by people that are listen, you cannot buy off on everything that you see on the internet about, oh, this is obviously where another shooter was. Look, I even said over the past couple of days, I'm still not convinced that there wasn't another shooter. I'm not convinced of that. There you go. I'm not a singer, but I'm a talker. I'm still not convinced that there wasn't another shooter. The sounds, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know about the echoing in that area, about whether it was rounds that were traveling over where somebody was filming, and so that was making, we know that makes a noise, but the rounds going over their head and ricocheting were making this noise, and the report coming off the weapon was making this noise, and it sounds like two weapons. I don't know. I'll let investigators figure that out, but I would like to know the answers to those types of things. Regardless, you cannot believe everything that you see on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. There's all these videos going around about, oh, there was a shooter on the 4th floor. Oh, there was a shooter that was on the 10th floor, I think is what they're saying now. Well, first off, there's no broken glass. There's no broken windows. Those windows don't open, as far as I have been told, on the Mandalay Bay. I think that's what it was called. I forgot the name of the hotel. But those windows don't open, okay? So there's no windows broken out as we saw on the 32nd floor. That's the first thing. Second thing is, it's Vegas. It's a hotel. A lot of these hotels have dance floors and different things on different levels. You can't assume that it's somebody firing. And what even kills me even more is when people say they're putting this stuff up and they're creating this conspiracy theory in their mind, saying, yes, here we have it, folks. You can see the muzzle flash. I love it when they call the barrel fire or barrel flash, but the muzzle flash from the 4th floor, obvious, and it's the sound isn't synced up because of, I don't know, they came up with some excuse, right? Well, what are you, some kind of sound expert from your TV that you're watching on CNN? I don't think so. The reality is, if you don't know what it is, don't go around spreading it. Don't go around telling people, and don't assume it. Investigations 101 teaches this. You let the evidence lead you in your investigation. You can come up with theories and see if there's information in that area, see if there's any type of evidence in that area, but you should not let your assumptions lead your investigations. And you, the American public now, you are investigators. You're investigators. You know more than some law enforcement officers in other countries because you're an American citizen, because you've been attacked. I would say Israeli citizens are the same way. And so you cannot allow theories to lead your investigation. Pontificate and think about theories and then go and seek evidence in that direction. And investigators do that. They get this evidence and they say, okay, this isn't adding up. What if this happened? And then you go look in that avenue. But you don't look at your evidence and say, this isn't adding up. This is what happened. You don't know what happened. So don't make that mistake. It's a dangerous mistake to make. You'll end up not trusting the government, or I don't trust the government, but you might not trust investigators or cops when they're trying to do their job. That's the first thing. Second thing, President Trump praised the police in Las Vegas. I'm okay with that. All right, that's his job to go out and do that. But these mistakes that are continuously made over and over again, which I went over some of them last night, we have to take a serious look at that. And I think it'd be great if the president led that charge and said, okay, what did we not have in this circumstance that kept cops from getting there almost immediately? And that is either spotters on the rooftops around the city with high-powered binoculars, or spotters and a sniper to take out somebody like that. You have this open-air environment right there in the middle, right, where there's 30,000 people for a concert, and it's surrounded by these hotels where you cannot check on who's going in there. Now, what I don't like is when the chief of, excuse me, I keep saying chief, he's a sheriff. When the sheriff comes out and says, oh, we did amazing stuff. Oh, we did everything. I know he's saying this to cover his own political butt because he's elected. But, I mean, I'm looking at pictures, and one picture that's going around the internet is of the Las Vegas cops leaned up against the car with their long guns, and then some guy laying on the ground. Meanwhile, you got some guy back there just texting, you know. The problem with law enforcement in these types of situations, right? You can't take the tactics that law enforcement has on a daily basis, patrolling the inner city, patrolling the streets of Vegas, right? They have figured out what works when it comes to hunting bad guys and enforcing the laws. You can't take that same tactics, techniques, and procedure and put that in the military and expect them to go overseas and utilize cop techniques in a war zone, right? Well, you also can't use you can't expect cop tactics to work when it comes to a situation like you had in Vegas. That is more akin to war zone tactics, right? So if the military was going to go over, let's say in Iraq, and they go in, they do the mother all battles, they take over this area, and they're in charge of policing a certain area, they should be paying close attention to how LA, NYPD, Las Vegas, these big cities, how they patrol an area and how they spot bad guys and how they deal with it. And then that's what you do in the city where you're locking things down, right? Well, it's the same, it's opposite and same here. If law enforcement is increasingly facing militaristic type attacks, they need to be borrowing the tactics, techniques, and procedures of military and how they not just confront the attack, but how they mitigate it before it happens, how they look at it and say, this is definitely a potential area, critical area for an attack. This is when the time that it would happen. Like, for instance, they say, okay, we're going to have an open-air event right here, surrounded by hotels. That's a critical area. Critical assets are the people in that area, or the sound equipment, or all these different things, right? Things that have to be there in order for this whole event to occur. They then say, okay, critical times, an hour before the concert and an hour after so they can get people dispersed. That is the critical time, from an hour before to an hour after. And any of that time in between is critical. Not 3 in the morning when nobody's there. Not 2 in the afternoon. That specific time when people are going to be there and they're going to be filtering in and filtering out, that's the critical time. The vulnerabilities for this would be the fact that it's low, that there's no way to harden it from the tall buildings around and the snipers. You also, because it's not a regular stadium and arena, people may be able to sneak in from different areas, and so you have to increase security in certain places in order to mitigate that. And then the attacker's avenue of approach, where are they going to come from? They're going to come from the ground over here where it's dark, perhaps, behind the stage where nobody's at. Maybe they'll just sneak right in. If they don't have metal detectors, they'll just walk right in with a weapon. Or maybe the avenue of approach for an attacker would be from shooting from a high angle in a hotel. How do you mitigate those things? You go through the process of attacker-defender. That's what my book is all about. And it's what is not being used in law enforcement. So this is the way military defensive plans are carried out and defenses are set up. This is the way the federal government protects a building, for instance, and hardens the building and the area around it. But you don't see this in day-to-day law enforcement with these special events, and you would think Vegas would have this. So can I lay blame on the sheriff? Sure, I can lay blame on the sheriff, but rather than lay blame, we should look at law enforcement across the board. This happened in Vegas. This happened in Orlando, the way they responded. You go all the way back to Columbine when things shifted, but they didn't shift enough. Even when you deal with recruiting stations, which we had a terrorist attack on those, on reserve bases where people muster for their weekend drills, nobody was armed there. These are things that that authorities can literally sit down and think like an attacker and identify these areas so that they can mitigate and lessen the vulnerabilities, so they can identify the critical areas, critical times, and so they can set up defenses against an offensive attack from a specific direction. So it's really that simple. But you don't see that. And you got a sheriff who's saying we did everything right. You got a president who's saying they did everything right, but they didn't do everything right. Law enforcement in general doesn't do it right because they have not realized that these are warfare, offensive warfare, unconventional warfare tactics. And in order to counter those or lessen those, you are going to have to borrow tactics, techniques, and procedures from the military that actually works in a war zone. Just the same, if the military was taking over an area in a war zone and we're going to police it, they may want to look at the tactics of what works for your average patrolman. One of the things they do in the military that I'd love to see is, listen, I don't want to say get rid of, but why don't we take the budgets that SWAT is given and we take those budgets and we increase the training for regular patrolmen, that we make sure that there's a certain amount of people on every shift that is trained up to at least to work in a team aspect from a SWAT perspective, that they get the equipment, that at least one or two of them have explosive breaches and flashbangs, so that you don't have to wait for SWAT to hurry up and get ready, or for negotiators or all that nonsense. This is the way you fix this. You realize it can happen, and we stop depending on SWAT. We don't, in a war type of attack like this, where for 9 minutes this guy is shooting, you don't have time to pull back and wait. Because in that period of time, just like what happened in Orlando, let's pull back and bring in the hostage negotiators. Meanwhile, the guy's killing people, and people that are on the ground already shot are dying. You cannot, in that type of an attack, move slow and easy. There has to be violence of action. You have to realize that it can happen, and you have to attack the attacker. And I'm not seeing that. And the only way they're going to be able to do this fast and efficiently is if they stop with this nonsense of SWAT. Got to have SWAT come in. Can't do it with the police because, hell, they're not trained enough. Well, yeah, they are. They just need they need to know the up-to-date tactics, techniques, and procedures. They need the equipment, and they need the confidence built in them through some training. It's really not going to cost any more if you reduce the funding and the dependency on SWAT. And I'd like to see the president recognize that. I'm not criticizing him. I'm not criticizing the sheriff and saying that they are wrong for saying their men and women did great things. They did great things. Listen, they laid their lives on the line. They went and rushed towards the sound of the shots as soon as they found them, because they didn't have the proper tactics, techniques, and procedures in play. And that's what's important about this. Learn from it. Don't just sit back and pat yourself on the back and say, whew, we almost got crucified on that politically. Forget about that. Let's get this stuff fixed so American people are safer, so they can have concerts, so they can enjoy the outdoor stuff that's going on, so that they can, so that the American people can go do things that are fun and safe. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick, I still don't know enough about, to tell you the truth. I'm not even going to try to figure out what this guy's motivation was yet. We don't have the evidence yet presented to us, the public, so I'm not going to speculate on it. I just saw some picture of some receipts. I don't know where they're from. I don't know who manufactured them. They were on one of those, I forgot who it was, somebody from like the InfoWars type stuff. I don't know if that stuff's real, so I'm not going to report on that. I would highly, highly recommend that you all, in these circumstances, turn off InfoWars, turn off Alex Jones and all those people that report for him. I guess they're entertaining, but they're not going to inform you of anything more than I'm going to inform you. In fact, they're more akin to doing what CNN and the rest of these leftists do. They're just doing it with a different spin, with a more of a conspiratorial conservative, and they're lashing out with accusations of it's way worse than it was, and then you think it's, so there's more going on, the government's lying. They don't know that. All right, so distance yourself in these breaking events like this. If I guess if you want to follow them for whatever reason to take your nuggets of truth from there, if you can find it, that's cool. But I don't recommend it, and I don't think that you're going to get a full. It's just like MSNBC. You think you're going to get a full picture of the truth from there or from CNN? No. You think you're going to get it from Fox News? No. You think you're going to get it from InfoWars? No. But you'll get nuggets of truth from all those. The problem that I have with InfoWars, though, is they're more along the lines of salacious stuff and assumptions without any facts. So I would distance yourself from that. But one of the things I want to talk about real quick are these bump stocks, okay? I'm not, I'm not the type of guy that's going to go around and make myself sound like I'm more of a badass than I really am. I think I'm a badass. I mean, I've done a lot of things. I don't have to prove that. And I've shot a lot of guns. I've done a lot of tactics. And I've been a lot of places involved with these stuff. I've gone through many doors in the FBI. And I've never shot a bump stock. To tell you the truth, I'd only barely heard about them before. And I don't know anybody who has one. My buddy Kerry Murphy, he's a dealer. He may have one. But I've never – I don't even – care about going full auto on a gun. I got asked on a radio show today when I was doing an interview that would it have lessened the number of people killed if this individual did not have the ability to go fully auto or simulation of fully auto. Listen, sometimes gun people say that's dumb things just as dumb as the gun rights active or as the gun control activists. And what is the difference between simulating automatic and an automatic weapon? Okay, I get it. It functions different, but it's pretty much sending the same amount of rounds down range, maybe a little less here or there. Maybe it's a little bit less reliable, but you're turning a weapon, it's semi-automatic, into a fully automatic weapon. It's, there's you can argue about the specifics of the lingo that I'm using, but the reporter asked, or the anchor on the radio show asked, would less people have been killed if it was just a semi-automatic weapon? In other words, one press of the trigger equals one round down range versus fully automatic, or a bump stock where so a fully automatic, you press the trigger and it will continue to cycle rounds through the chamber as long as you have that pressed and as long as there's ammunition feeding into the weapon. With a bump stock, what happens is when you have a semi-automatic weapon and you pull the trigger, you press the trigger once, it's going to fire the round and cycle. Then you have to let off of it and press it again, and it'll shoot again. But with a bump stock, from what I'm understanding of these, is it basically takes the recoil and creates its own recharging of the weapon, if you will, so people can understand what I'm saying. So you pull the trigger just like a semi-automatic, it fires, the weapon recoils, and it automatically recharges the trigger, so you don't have to take your finger off the trigger like this. So it uses that recoil, and I don't think it uses gas pressure. I could be wrong here, but it uses a recoil to keep a constant cycle going on. So it's very similar to a fully automatic weapon. Regardless of how it works, the amount of rounds that were sent down range, it's just like a fully auto weapon. A bump stock and an automatic rifle, when you're sending, that many rounds down range, you're going to get a rise in the weapon and a pushback of all the pressure from that gun, and it makes it very unreliable. From 25 yards, maybe you'll hit a target once after you practice. From 10 yards, you get maybe 2, 3, 5 rounds out of a 25-round mag or 30-round mag. So when this guy's 400 yards away and he's laying down rounds, he was laying down so many rounds and it was so populated there that was the only thing that was working to his advantage. But my answer to this anchor when they asked me the question is, with my training and experience and many people that are gun enthusiasts, and by and large really anyone who's shot a gun before, you can go fully auto, you can put a bump stop on there and spray and pray. But if I have a a semi-automatic weapon where I press the trigger, it fires, I let off the trigger, and then press the trigger again and it fires because it's rechambering around every time, my shots will be more accurate. And especially if I have a scope or an aim point from 400 yards is going to do too much. But if you have a scope where you can actually see what the effect is, you're going to be able to hit, I would say, I don't know, I don't want to give a number like, say, double or triple, but I think the body count that this guy had would have been tremendously higher if he was practice on a range for any period of time with semi-automatic single shots, because each one you hit the target and you get back onto another target. But when you're shooting full auto, there's no holding on a target. The thing is, it's coming around, it's trying to rise and push you back at the same time. Even with a bipod on it, it's going to be difficult to hold that thing steady on a target. So I think the debate that's going on about this bump stock, and fully auto weapons, you know, in 1986, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure the people will that are all into the gun gurus here. There was a point where you couldn't, because of a law that was passed, you couldn't buy a fully automatic weapon anymore unless you have, and I got schooled on this today, unless you, I always thought it was a dealer's license, but it's actually a Type 3 FFL license, federal firearms license, and that allows you as a trader, somebody who's a enthusiast that maybe collects these things, maybe you're a dealer, maybe you're an armor, and it allows you to transport these weapons, to own them, but you can't own, and I'm thinking I'm correct on this, ones that were manufactured after 1986, and those are expensive. You know, a cheap one's like $5,000, upwards of $20,000 for a gun that's worth, really, the reality, if you were looking at the military, what they pay is about $1,000. So that's why the bump stock is so popular, because you can get the weapon to do pretty much the same thing for $200 to $500, depending on the quality of bump stock that you get. So the conversation that we're having, there's very few people in this country that own fully automatic weapons. There's not a lot of people that have use for a bump stock, because you're not going to go hunting with it, and you're not going to, it's expensive to shoot a lot of ammunition. It's fun to do it and show somebody. Maybe you want to impress your date, and you're taking them to the range, and so you shoot with the bump stock, and you get to feel the fully auto. That's, can be fun. But most people aren't going to go wasting massive amounts of money training with a bump stock. So they're not as popular as you would think. And like I said before, if you have some training and you're on a semi-auto, one press, one round, you're going to be able to get back on target much faster. So the real debate and discussion they should be having in Washington, D.C. isn't about suppressors, a.k.a. silencers for the idiot politicians like to call it that. It's not about the fully automatic weapons. It's not about the bump stocks. It should be, first and foremost, about trying to figure out how do we lessen the impact of mental health in this country. There's very little that has been done in years with people who are suffering from mental illness. There was a woman who killed her daughters, I believe it was in Texas, and she shot them. She got the gun legally, but she had 18 run-ins with law enforcement over her past. And those are the types of things that when you go apply for a legal weapon, they should be looking, not how many guns you buy. There's a lot of gun enthusiasts that have multiple weapons, but they should be looking seriously at how many run-ins did you have with the law? Are you a violent person? And then before you get that weapon, if that's the case, maybe they should require you to sit down with a doctor. I mean, look, I don't know if that's the way it should be done, but that's the discussion we should be having. This whole nonsense that is going on in Washington, D.C. by the Democrats and the rhinos, for that matter, and you're going to see celebrities jump on board. The reality is they could take away all the automatic weapons. Bad guys are still going to get them. They could get rid of all the bump stocks. People are still going to be able to manufacture, shave down their trigger, where it can shoot faster. I mean, they'll be able to do all this stuff to make their guns faster, and they're still going to get them, whether it's actually cheaper to buy an illegal AR off the black market than it is to buy a one legally. You just have to know how to get it. So their discussions and their solutions aren't going to fix anything. The discussion should be about mental health. The discussion should be about how to stop terrorists, and it should also be about how to forward think where an attack can come from and how to mitigate it. And those are the discussions that should be going on. And you're not hearing these things. By the way, if you're on Twitter, don't even associate with the trolls tonight if they're doing stuff. Don't even let it get to you. Just ignore these people and do your comments and have your conversation. Don't worry about what they have to say. So, I love Twitter, but these trolls are all over the place. So you can't get wrapped up in it. Okay, so that's about enough, I think, about what's going on in Las Vegas. We don't really know much more than that. I will tell you this. His brother is a cuckoo bird, and I don't know about his girlfriend. She says she thought he was breaking up with her because he told her he wanted to go home and see her family. He sent $100,000 and told her to buy a house. He didn't tell her what he's going to do, I guess, but it's interesting. Most people I know, if their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend stump their toe on something, they're going to know about it, let alone if they're planning on an attack. But all these women always say, oh, I didn't know anything. I don't know. I don't believe that with the Boston bomber. I don't believe that with the woman whose husband shot up Orlando. I don't know about this one. But I do know that that guy's brother should be looked at closely. He is a strange bird, to say the least. They did an interview with him. He started talking, and I bet the reporters were sitting back there like, the guy just wouldn't shut up, and the stuff that he said was absolutely crazy. Anyway, we'll see what comes of that. Let's go to the A block, and I want to talk about Michelle Obama. Actually, let's start it off with Representative John Lewis. We're going to go straight to him. I got a lot to say about him. And then we'll go to Michelle Obama after that. Let's go to the A block. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, let's I'm going to play this video here. And this is off of Twitter. Let me pull this over here.
How many more dead bodies will it take to wake up this Congress?
Okay. I'm not responsible. This is the only one that I could find. There was one earlier that didn't have this music on it, but now it's got music on it. But, okay. He just asked the question, how many more dead bodies is it going to take to wake up Congress? That's the question I have. And I'm not talking about Las Vegas. I'm talking about Chicago, where last month 57 people were killed. You didn't hear one word about the illegal gun sales in Chicago. You didn't hear one word about black-on-black crime in Chicago from this guy, right? This guy right here. And now he's going to jump out and make a big thing about Las Vegas. Yeah, it should be a big thing. There should be a conversation going on about it. But don't come at us, you liar, Representative Lewis. Don't come at us acting like you care about people's lives when they're dying left and right by the thousands every year just in Chicago, not even including other inner cities where this nonsense continues to occur because of drug use, because the inner city is destroyed with gang violence and children born out of wedlock, so there's no family unit. Weapons just traded like a black market all over the place. Where's the conversation about that? The fact is, you and Hillary Clinton and all these other people, you just jump on the bandwagon of something like this. It's disgraceful because you know it's going to further your communist beliefs. And you know it's a great way because 57 young men not getting killed by cops in the inner city, getting killed by each other in the inner city, not from legally acquired weapons, but by illegally acquired weapons at the hands of these people. They're being killed, and none of that is being reported. You're not reacting to it. So don't come at us on this day, several days after this horrific event, and say, gun violence, we got to have a conversation. What about the conversation of mental illness? What about the conversation of the inner city and the destruction of the inner city? What about the conversation of illegal aliens, of illegal gun sales? What about those conversations, Representative Lewis? The fact is, you're not concerned with what's best for this country. The fact is, you are a liar. You have used the equal rights movement throughout the years to boost your popularity, and you rode that wave straight into office, and you've never left, and coincidentally never done anything to stop gun violence, to stop drug use in the inner city, to clean up the inner city, to be a beacon of hope for people who are impoverished. You want to point out your color constantly. You want to point out how stupid other politicians are when you're the one that's actually dumb. You're the one that wants to go around utilizing these types of tragic events for your own self-worth. Let's go ahead and go through this a little bit more.
What is your blood price?
Good question.
How many more must die?
Good question.
This Congress
in Chicago, that's what I'm going to keep saying,
has failed the American people.
And
as
Chicago.
a Newtown and Aurora, as a Charleston and Orlando.
And Chicago.
9 Las Vegas.
And Chicago.
How many more must die?
In Chicago.
100? 1,000?
Or thousands in Chicago?
10,000?
Yeah.
1,000,000?
Could
How
be.
many mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, sons and daughters, husband and wife?
In Chicago.
Tell me what? Tell me and tell us. What is the number?
In Chicago.
How many more dead bodies will it take
in the inner
to
city.
wake up this Congress? But there's no number, is there?
Oh, there's a number. It's every year. It comes out every year in the statistics from Chicago and other cities where they have this type of violence, of black-on-black crime, of gang crime, of killings and drive-by shootings, of children being killed by gang members. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a number. It's called the statistics that you don't want to look at, Representative Lewis. That's what it is. It's the statistics that you don't want to look at because you're a liar.
No amount of blood, of pain, of death, of suffering, what will move this Congress to act?
Well, you tell us. You're a part of Congress, Representative Lewis. You've been in Congress longer than many, longer than most. You tell us what's going to get Congress to act. Obviously, it's not anything that you're going to do. You go around and you ride these huge, like this was publicized, but the 57 people that were killed last month in Chicago, it wasn't publicized. You're not going to ride that wave because it doesn't do anything for your career, but you'll sure as heck ride this wave because of the magnitude of it and how it was publicized. Now, I'm not saying what happened in Vegas isn't a tremendous tragedy. It is. But it's a tragedy that is not going to be solved by eliminating bump stocks. It's not a tragedy that's going to be solved by curving or eliminating our Second Amendment. It is a circumstance that could be mitigated by looking at mental health, by looking at increasing police ability to react and better training, less money to SWAT, more money to cops, more money to equipment, and better tactics, techniques, and procedures so that it can be stopped like that. I guarantee in Chicago, if you give the right people, the legal people, good, hardworking American citizens the right to carry concealed weapons, the only people that are going to be dead not long after that are going to be bad people. But you don't have this conversation.
We hold moments of silence and vigil. We offer our thoughts and prayers, but it's all a show,
Yep.
a placeholder,
Yep.
until people forget. And this Congress can move on to rolling back restrictions on silence or making it easier for the.
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to insult the guy because he has difficulty talking. But I can guarantee you, if Representative Lewis was speaking from the heart and didn't have his head buried in a piece of paper right here because he has to read this propaganda, it's not coming from his heart. Okay, I know I give speeches. When I'm speaking from the heart, it is powerful, it's meaningful, I agree. But if I have to read something like anybody that's listened to me on Sirius or on when I host a Sean Hannity radio show or David Webb or Andrew Wilkow, and I have to read one of those commercials when we come back from breaks, there's only so much emotion I can put into those things because they're a commercial. I tend to make them more funny than I do anything. But this guy, the reason he didn't say silencers correctly isn't because he has a speech impediment. It's because he has a heart impediment, because he has a brain impediment. He is having to read this, something that he doesn't feel and obviously doesn't understand. Saying that we should be having a debate. Let me go back and say that, have him say this again.
Rolling back restrictions on silence or making it easier for the mentally ill to purchase weapons.
Do you think that's really the mentally ill to purchase weapons? This guy wants to restrict people from having weapons so that he and the other communists in the Democratic Party and the rhinos in the Republican Party can restrict you and have power over you. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the way that they work. Lifelong politicians are no different than kings and queens and lords from old time, like the Game of Thrones era, where they lord over people, and the best way to do that is by having power over them. That's what they want.
Don't tell me otherwise.
I'll tell you otherwise.
I've been around too long.
Doing
we
nothing.
Lost Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, we know all about it. Here we go.
To a man with a rifle. We lost Senator Robert Kennedy to a man with...
All right, I'm done with this guy. You see what I'm saying, folks. You cannot buy into this nonsense. This guy, in my lifetime, and since I graduated college in 1995 and I studied political science and psychology, I have never seen this individual do anything worth anything in his career field. Nothing. As a congressman, he's done nothing. I'm sure he's got a lot of people paid off. He's done some deals here and there, but he and the rest of the Congress, the Democratic and the Republican Congress, they don't do anything to solve anything. They don't have the right discussions. It's always based on, I know more, or it's based on my constituents, or that are not constituents like you and I, constituents that are going to pay him. Silencers. What an idiot. I don't think I need to say any more about that guy, except for put him in the category that I put, man, I sure hope my mouse starts working. Put him in the category with, oh man, hold on a second here, with Alex Jones and the rest of those people that are the conspiracy theorists. Well, son of a gun, my mouse just died. Hold on. I have no way of forwarding my show without a mouse. You guys are going to get to see a production. This is my production crew working right now, which is me. There it goes. Stand by. I have to get emergency batteries. Don't go anywhere. If there's 274 people, 300 people watching, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. We're going to go into discussing Michelle Obama. Stand by. I just robbed Peter to pay for Paul. So what we did here is, this is the hard part about having wireless. Stand by. I think that should work. Yep. Bada bing. We are back in the mix, I think. Let me plug this back in. Make sure I can hear myself. All right. There it is. All right. Mouse is back. So as I was saying, John Lewis is an idiot. Let's go to the A block or to the B block. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right. Let me pull up this story about Michelle Obama here. And let's see here. Stand by. All right, here you go. How stupid is this, okay? Michelle Obama says that people don't trust politics because Republican Party is all men, all white. Let's see. I don't know if there's a video of her saying this or not. Let's see what this video is. This is off of Fox News Insider.
The same is true, true for all of us. If we're trying to get anything done and we look around and we all look alike, we're all sitting around the same table and we feel really comfortable with ourselves, we should question that at any table that we're at. And we should be working actively to mix it up so that we're getting a real broad range of perspectives on every issue. But I would see that in Congress. I mean, one of the most interesting points, I told you about this, usually at the State of the Union address, where, you sit in the balcony and watch the State of the Union.
Like you do.
Yeah, like you do. You see it on TV, I'm in the room, but when you're in the room, what you can see is this real dichotomy. That on one side of the room, it's a feeling of color almost. On one side of the room, it's literally gray and white. Literally, that's the color palette on one side of the room.
Now she's talking about the liberal side, okay? Anyway, hold on, let me rephrase this a little.
The other side of the room, there's yellows and blues and whites and greens.
She's talking about the gray and white as the conservative side, and she's talking about all these different colors as the liberal side, the Democratic side.
Physically, there's a difference in color, in the tone.
Wow.
Because one side, all men, all white. On the other side, some women, some people of color. And whenever I was sitting, I would always have a guest in that booth. Mm-hmm. And I was always the most embarrassed at the beginning when people would see that. Because I'd say that
another person embarrassed by the United States, and always embarrassed. Everybody, all these people, all these leftists are always embarrassed by stuff. Instead of just saying this is the way it works out. These are the people that want to be here. These are the people that work and they run for office. Or this is.
Is it just me? Am I looking at how governance works? And people look down at that and go, yeah, that looks good. That looks right. We're probably getting a lot done and we're doing it right. I look at that and I go, no wonder. No wonder we struggle. No wonder people don't trust politics. It's not, we're not even noticing what these rooms look like. But it's not just politics. I mean, I'm sure we can go in any C-suite in this country and we'd see the same thing happening.
Yeah.
So until we're ready to fight for that, which means some people have to be willing to give up their seats to make room, or you need to be ready to add more.
Okay. Let's just say this. Again, have you noticed these key words that the leftists are saying? See you later there, Michelle Obama. They're saying that you're going to have to fight for this, for it to be, in their eyes, equal, and you're going to have to give up. That's what they constantly are saying. You're going to have to, the rest of us are going to have to give up something, and the people who want that thing, are going to have to fight for that thing. That's what they're constantly saying. That's why even this guy that shot up Las Vegas, I'm still not convinced that he doesn't have some kind of leftist ideology. Just like the guy that shot up the baseball practice for Congress, just like the guy that killed the Black Lives member that killed 5 cops in Dallas, just like the Black Lives member that killed the cops in Louisiana. These people are leftist. They identify with a Marxist mentality, and they always think it's always the same. We're going to have to fight for it. You're wrong. We're going to have to fight you. And you're going to have to give up what we want. That's what they always think. It always comes back to that. Let me see what other quotes there were here. She said, it's no wonder that people don't trust politics. We're not noticing what these rooms look like. That's what she just said. Unless we are ready to fight for that, which means some people will have to be willing to give up their seats to make room. You will need to be ready to add more seats. I think we're going to continue to struggle. There's the other word. The other key word is struggle. It's always a struggle with them. It's never, they're not interested in unity of people. They're interested in unity of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Listen, they're not as concerned about, they are concerned about it, but for not the reasons that you are not, that most people don't realize. Okay, they want to have a certain number of people with dark skin, a certain number of females, a certain number of people have this sexuality or that sexuality. They want to have a mixture of all these different numbers, none of which has anything to do with effectiveness. What she is saying right here is that when she looks down at Congress and she sees more white people than she does, her words, yellow, I would never use that word, or black or whatever. In other words, if she doesn't see the diversity that she thinks should be down there, she thinks automatically it's broken. But as we've shown on this show and as we've talked about and I've seen in my career, you can't choose somebody and expect them to be effective at something if you're just strictly picking them on the color of their skin or sexuality or gender. It's the same way as if I say, well, I'm not going to hire that person because they have dark skin. Well, that person could be an outstanding worker, and you just screwed up by not hiring that person. You could, quadruple your profits. You could do all these different things. You could make the place safer, whatever the job may be that you were searching for. Well, it works the other way around. You can't say because they're all white, they're ineffective. It may just be that they are the ones who wanted that position and they went for it. Now, could there be streams of racism in politics? Oh, I bet there is. Okay, I don't doubt that there probably is. But you're not going to break those strings of racism. You're not going to break those strings of bad politics by putting people that are more diverse based on their physical characteristics. You want to have an effective Congress, an effective presidency, an effective White House, Senate, Supreme Court, or any court system, mayors and their offices, governors. If you want to have something that's effective, go out and find people that are smart. Not black or white or yellow or whatever. Go find people who have the ability to seek out effective results. Not somebody who's gay or straight. If you want to have things done right and you want solutions for problems, Don't just go out and seek diversity. Seek quality. And that's not what she's saying here. So because of that, I have to assume that Michelle Obama is a racist. She is bothered more by white and gray as she puts it. I don't know what in the heck they mean by these things. She is more concerned with the color of people's skin, getting people with a colors of different colors into these jobs than she is in seeking out people who are effective. And she absolutely wants people with light skin out. And that's racism. She sees things in an unrealistic way. She's making judgments off the color of somebody's skin. She's looking at them and she's saying that things are damaged because of them. That's not true. It's unrealistic and it's hateful. That's racism. You don't have to be in poverty to be a racist. You don't have to only have light skin to be a racist. It just takes a human being that can breathe and makes an assumption about a person, makes a judgment about a person, or just simply doesn't like an individual based on their color. Same thing with gender. Same thing with sexuality. You don't have to, it's not just people with light skin that are going to be racist. That's the biggest lie you could ever hear from these people. The fact is, folks, what Michelle Obama is displaying right here is no different than what you saw displayed back in the 50s and 60s when people were excluded because of their color. She's saying that people should be included because of their color. Back in the 60s and 50s, before that, people were excluded not because they were ineffective or because they were dumb or because they were mean or because they weren't good at something. They were excluded simply because of the color of their skin or sexuality or gender. Now, they want people included for those same reasons, not because they're effective. Not because they're smart, not because they can do a job better than somebody else, not because they are the ones who tried to do the job. They're the ones who sought out to get that election. They're the ones who made all the connections and were able to work their way up, raise the money for the election. She's not concerned with that. What she is concerned with is a racial, and I would say racist, belief that we need to get people of color, of a certain gender, of a certain sexuality, and not even considering whether or not they're effective in that job. The other thing is you can be racist and have an extreme education. You can also be racist and be completely uneducated. Here he is. He wants to say hi. Right? Look at this dog, for instance, okay? He is white, he's black, he's got some brown in him, he's got a lot of gray now, but this dog, that would be like me saying that I like this half better than this half, or this half is more dangerous than this half of him. He's a dog. Color doesn't matter. It's how he's raised. It's how I trained him. Right? Do I feed him correctly? When he did something wrong, did I correct him? Did he mind well? If he didn't, did I teach him to mind well? It's not the color of his fur. Get out of here. It's the same thing if you don't want people judging others by the color of their skin. You cannot turn around and do the same thing and insist that people hire them based on the color of their skin. Right? Or fur. All right, get out of here. Such an ornery old dog. These things really get me because, I mean, look, I love doing this show every night, okay? I love doing this show. Every night we do this show. But the majority of stuff that we talk about on this show, folks, I hope you're starting to realize after doing this show for so long that the majority of things that we talk about in this show and the majority of problems that are in this country and in this world are just simply the result of stupid people, large egos, narcissistic people who some of them are psychopaths, and a lazy citizenry that is okay with being comfortable and saying, we're going to hire that person and they're going to go save the world like they're all supermen and superwomen. It's not going to happen. So, interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and close the show up now. I want to say thanks again. Incredible numbers. I posted on Twitter. I'll post it on Facebook after this show. The interview I did with Bill O'Reilly. I was the first guest that he had in studio for his podcast, and it was a great interview, although I looked extremely tired yesterday. I don't know why. But it was a great interview, and I have the utmost respect for Bill O'Reilly, for Sean Hannity, for David Webb and Andrew Wilkow, and all the rest of the people there at Sirius. Even my good buddy Rick Unger. Love him. So, and all their producers and Linda and everybody else, all these people in this industry, I work with some of the best. Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity, definitely some of the best, and it was an honor yesterday to be on with Bill. Make sure that you're retweeting the show, that you're sharing it on Facebook. Take a look at this book. It's coming out, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Everything that I talked about at the beginning of the show has to do with this book. If you, right down here, if you donate $50 or more to the GoFundMe page, you're going to get, when it comes out, you're going to get a signed copy of the book. And we're just going to have to get your address and stuff so we can send that to you. We'll get that. We're keeping a database of all the people that donated, and then we're going to get your addresses. Finally, we're going to do it the correct way. And everything I talked about in the beginning, you can do yourself. You can target yourself. You can figure out where things are the most dangerous. So go order this book. Donate to the GoFundMe page and help me continue to finance this show and keep it going. And eventually, as we did before, I'm going to get it back out on the road. Again, this book stuff is taking off in weird ways. And then weeks like this where I'm doing a ton of radio interviews, it's a good way to populate the viewership of this show and get more money to the GoFundMe campaign. With that being said, one other last thing. I talked to Jim DeLong today and some other people that were administrators from the Jonathan T. Gilliam, the Friends of Jonathan T. Gilliam page. And we are going to change the name. I think some people wanted to have this whole web page pulled down, or the Facebook page pulled down. I'd like to give everybody a place to go and talk after the show if they want to do that. But I'm going to be honest with you. People are posting things on there that I don't agree with. I don't agree with Alex Jones or all these conspiracy theory videos that come out. I think that there's a lot of harsh language on there, and quite frankly, I'm not. That's not me, and I'm not going to be a part of it. So I can't thank Jim DeLong and everybody else, Roxanne, Stephanie, Maureen. Who else am I leaving out there? All the rest of the people that were basically running that page. I can't thank you enough, and I still want to push people over there to have the conversations afterwards. I'm hoping that we change the name to Dialogue and Unity page so you can go over there and have that. But I can't put my name on something that I don't control, first of all, and I can't put my name on something and endorse it if people are posting things that I don't agree with. So I tried to have this conversation before and tell people that you can't put stuff like that up, but it continued to happen. So we'll not a big deal. I want to keep the page up. I just don't want to have necessarily the Friends of Jonathan T. Gilliam, because that stuff, now that the book's out and stuff, I don't want people turning that stuff around. I mean, plus I just don't identify with a lot of the stuff that's on there. So let's go to the Truth Zone, and we will close this show up for tonight. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, Act, available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep no more. Get it. All right. Look, I'm just going to leave you with this tonight, folks. The numbers in this show have grown tremendously over the past 2 weeks. The viewership has of people that didn't watch this show before has increased, and the input the same way. The trolls have actually increased as well, but listen, it is what it is. We just have to work our way around these weirdos in this world, I guess. But I want to leave you with this. You don't have to be white or have light skin to be a racist. If you're liberal and you're watching this show, or you have dark skin, you should realize this. You could be Harvard graduate and still be stupid. In fact, I think there's a lot of them. You can be the poorest person in the world and still have a lot to offer. Love, knowledge, wisdom. Don't believe the things that you're told by liars like Representative John Lewis. Don't believe somebody like Michelle Obama, who's politically motivated and who is a narcissist and who will come out and say things that are racist. Don't buy into it. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you have no arms and no legs. There's something that you can do that's effective. You may have an amazing mind and a crippled body. I don't look at the body. I don't look at the color of the skin. I don't look at the sexuality. I don't look at your gender. I look at you. And I ask the question, when you stamp your name on something, is it the best that you can produce? If you have a goal to be this, are you the type of person that will reach out and achieve that? Are you the type of person that when you wake up in the morning, you have a goal to be the best you can be? Sometimes you'll fail. When you go to bed at night, are you somebody who has a conscience enough to where when you've done something wrong, you realize that you did it wrong? And if you did something great, it's okay to pat yourself on the back, but you're not wrapped up in how great you are? That's the people that I want to see in leadership positions. I don't care if we have 50 people in Congress that are crippled but have amazing minds. Put them down there. I don't care if somebody has dark skin. If the whole side of Congress is people with dark skin, if they're the only ones that ran or they're the best for the job, as long as they don't make the color of their skin, just like somebody who's got light skin, the basis of their decisions, put them down there. If you're gay, you don't have to be liberal. You don't have to be conservative. Be effective. If you're a woman, don't look for ways to make people recognize you. Be somebody who's recognized. Don't buy in to the nonsense of the Michelle Obamas and the John Lewises. Don't buy into it. Don't buy into the Chuck Schumers and the people who have no idea about firearms that are trying to convince you that that's the way you stop these mass shootings. That's not going to stop it. Folks, join me here tomorrow for another show, Friday for the Toast. And as always, we're bringing the truth to you. I'm Jonathan Gillum. This is The Experts. My buddy Rico's down there. And as always, the truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow.